This is the Stories from the Field podcast, a Delaware Farm Bureau production, sharing real stories from local farmers while educating the public on the agriculture industry. Featured on this episode is Andrea Haritos. She is the owner of Huck and Buck Farms, which is a homestead business on her property in Smyrna, Delaware. Her farm features a large vegetable garden, flower garden, chickens, some ducks, turkeys, and other animals. She has even expanded her venue to offer various events, such as birthday parties, showers, and picnics. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Welcome.
Yes.
Nice to be here.
So glad we got to see a tour of your farm.
Yes, before the rain.
Yes. So you can just tell us a little bit about yourself and how this whole operation started.
So the operation started with actually my husband Michael, who wanted to have chickens. We were not allowed to have chickens in a particular neighborhood that we lived in prior to this property. So me being the adventurous one, it was kind of like, why don't we move? But we are both teetering in our late 40s, him early 50s, so moving was kind of like questionable, but I'm all about let's live life. So we found this property here in Smyrna, 7 acres, really not knowing what we were going to do with 7 acres, but 5 years later, and we have actually like almost every inch allocated something to the property. But it started off with Michael and the chickens, and now we have, like you said, the ducks, the geese, the turkeys, meat turkeys. We now have ventured into hogs, and we do agritourism, from people visiting to pick blackberries, to be able to do a little bit of blueberries when we have them. But basically the camping is one of the biggest things that assists us with actually financially taking care of the animals in the farm.
Wow. That is a great story.
Thanks.
You guys really just said you had this dream and you started this farm from the ground up.
Correct.
So that, you take pride in that.
Yes,
so
definitely.
That is good. What does your farm specialize in mainly?
So I think the biggest thing, if you wanted to actually pull out a specialty, it would be the agritourism. We started off with a glamping tent that we got off of Amazon, about $1,000. We actually had an outdoor shower, compost toilet, and that was in 2021. And we allowed people to come with their RVs at that point with no electricity, so you had to have your own generator and or bring in your own tent. The platform that we used at that time was Hip Camp, and we still do, but we have now kind of just elaborated a little bit more and added some more amenities. So we now have a tiny home that is an actual physical structure that you can stay in, allows us to be able to have year-round camping per that building. And we still have a lot of people that come with their own tent or RV. And then we also do some long-term RV campers who are really just looking to just change their lifestyle, not looking to actually purchase homes. And I get a lot of phone calls monthly, people that want to actually stay somewhere for long term.
That's great. That's really wonderful. I love the agritourism piece.
Yes.
What do you find that most of these, I'm assuming out-of-staters or people visiting, what do they see when they see this farm with animals and vegetables? Do they have a lot of questions?
So I think the biggest, I want to say, participant or campers that we receive are out of state. Like my husband said, Delaware is more of a pass-through state. So we will get some local, but we actually get more out of state. I want to probably say statewide is probably Virginia and New York. I will have people that will actually travel the 2 hours that will come and stay, whether it's if they're tent, RV, or staying in the tiny home, that they're just looking for a place of just rest and just relaxation, and being in front of farm animals that they may never have been able to see at a higher level, of being able to actually physically be there in front of them and touch and be immersed in the farm life is something that captured them. Because currently we only do, I think our market comes from just the reviews. I really haven't had a chance to hone in on a lot of marketing, but it's really the Google reviews and the different platforms between Airbnb and HipCamp that are giving us the actual foot traffic coming in.
That's great. You seem to be having a lot of traffic and people seeing your farm, and that's a great opportunity for people to learn about agriculture that have never maybe been introduced to it before.
Correct.
Or grew up with it. So that's really good.
Mm-hmm.
What is one thing that you wish that the public knew about agriculture that is maybe a common misconception?
I think from the public's perception, I think they feel that it's easy. Farming is easy, and it's not. It is a year-round, whichever zone you live in. It's a year-round practice, even if it's just a matter of at the beginning of the year, meaning the colder season, to be seeding and planting out your gardens. But it's a lot of work. So whether it's raining, because we have the animals, if it's snowing, hail, whatever, we have to actually be outside. During this cold winter that we just came across, that a lot of the times we had to go out there 3 times a day to actually make sure that the water wasn't frozen.
Oh, wow.
So it's not just a matter of, putting down a bowl of water and food for cats and dogs. It's continual because they're outdoor animals. I think we have domesticated the animals so much on that cat and dog level that people are really like fascinated to ask me, like, what do the animals do in the wintertime? I'm like, they're outside. But I think for the most part, it's been because, again, the dogs and cats, that they kind of translate that type of care to outside goats, sheep, whatever type of animal. But it's a lot of work. And financially, from that aspect of it, there's not a lot of money.
Yeah.
There really isn't. The average market or the average farmer can actually make yearly, like maybe $30,000 a year. If they're on the trajectory of 40, that seems, great, but it's just not a lot based on us trying to actually pull the younger generation in to start farming, because as I've been to several Farm Bureau events and meetings and just conventions, so to speak, they'll tell you that the average farmer is in their late 50s. So we're kind of struggling and almost to the point of wanting to phase out, trying to get the 30-year-olds to start coming in, teaching the 20-year-olds to start picking up the gauntlet. That it's just not happening because it's an everyday grind. And when you financially hear the numbers, it just doesn't make sense to them. So
Yeah.
that's the issue. It's the financial part of it and understanding how much work you have to put into whatever, from the animals and or veggies, flowers, herbs, whatever. It's just a lot of work.
Right. Yes. It definitely is a lot of work to be
Yeah.
a farmer, and
Yeah.
it's long days,
All
lots of
day.
hours,
Yes.
never ending,
Yes.
and you have to rely on the weather,
Right,
and
correct.
that's out of your control. A lot
Absolutely.
of uncontrollables that you have to take into account.
Right.
So, yeah, I think that is definitely something maybe some people don't know about farming,
Right.
how much they have to rely on other things, and it
And
takes
it's other
up.
resources. So when you're saying relying on other things, for me, that is why we do the agritourism. So you have to diversify. You have to find ways to not just sell just your basic herbs, meat, vegetables, flowers, that you have to find a way to actually make that particular item or enterprise, so to speak, like you need to just drill it down to nuts and bolts of being able to do everything. Edible flowers, people don't know that they can eat flowers. So making something where there's a cookie or some type of jelly from your sunflowers or your roses, because we know that some of those things we can't receive or buy from the store because they're sprayed, but you can do jams and jellies from my roses and my sunflowers. My husband is Greek, and his mother told me that Greek culture, that they do rose jellies. So those are things that you don't know, but trying to get more information on how to actually expand even just one particular enterprise can help. So the agritourism, which is for me making money on my land without the financial pit of a rental. The roof is a mess, the dishwasher is a mess. It's just literally somebody pitching a tent on my grass.
Yeah.
So it's easy peasy.
I love that. We are seeing a lot of farmers diversify
Yeah,
now.
definitely.
And what you have here is definitely offers a variety of things to your customers, and that's
Correct.
great. As a beginning small farmer,
Mhm.
what drew you to the Delaware Farm Bureau, and how did you become a member, and why?
I think after the first 3 years of doing it and starting to really pick apart what it is I enjoy, what I see my customers come and get, what they enjoy doing, it allowed me, after the first 3 years of the hustle, or hucking and bucking on the farm, that the last 2 years, which has now been coming up on the fifth, I was allowed to kind of like slow down a little bit and start searching through the grants that I was actually able to receive and get some of the items that I do have on the farm, which are the high tunnels, the second well on my property, some of the drip irrigation, me actually speaking out to some of the agencies and getting those items very quickly. It made me feel like I felt like the poster child. Like I'm the only one based on my friend base that is getting these, that are receiving these items, that I went to these services to say, hey, how can we partner together, make it a little bit more user friendly in the language, the application, the understanding on what it is they need to do to start getting people to actually receive some of this information and some of these actual assisted practices that are high tunnels or equipment to allow them to actually expand their business. So I've put together some events and some classes together with a couple of the organizations to make things a little bit easier. But Farm Bureau for me just made sense with regard to the low cost in reference to the annual fee, which is great. And then you guys are just honestly just like constantly giving information from every corner, from the political side of farming, from just the local stuff that's going on in the state of Delaware, your merch that you have. So I just find it very friendly to people that want to get into farming, and them understanding that they don't have to be a huge 200-acre farm. That could be somebody like myself that is 7, or someone who has, a half-acre lot that lives in an HOA. So I think it's very user-friendly.
Right.
And it made sense to be able to be a part of that.
That's great to hear your story, and you're definitely a great example of, there can be members that support the ag industry and don't have a huge farm, but still want to be a member and
Correct.
involved, and that's wonderful to hear that, you've found your place here at the Delaware Farm Bureau.
Yes.
So my last question is something fun.
There we go.
What is, the next big thing? What is I think you were talking about some ideas. Is there one big idea for your farm?
So outside of the second high tunnel that we just received this year, it's the bigger one, which is about 30 feet wide by 100 feet long, which allows me to actually grow the flowers. I like color, so I love the veggies, but everything is always green. The flowers are big, and for me to just use this year and next year as kind of like a research and development, like an R&D year, to be able to learn that aspect of flower growing, and then find a way to immerse myself in the culture, whether it's through weddings or florists or at the stores. But I think after this, I'm 56, I'll be 60 in 4 years, that I really want to just have another piece of land, very small, doesn't have to be big, something that's like an acre or two, to be able to put a retreat together for people to be able to come and stay on and be able to immerse themselves again in some type of ag living or design, and then not have as much activity on my property as we're getting older, for me to allow my husband, and I am going to say the word allow, but allow him have his home back. Because one of the things, I'm very transparent that when you're doing these things, you have to take the good and the bad. So it's a blessing to be able to receive people coming onto my property on an almost weekly basis and be able to monetarily or monetize my farm off of that. But you have to be okay with having strangers continuously on your farm. So at some point you want to slow that down a little bit and be able to get back to just he and I, as we are empty nesters. But I give it about another 4 or 5 years. So flowers and another small piece of land to let a manager manage that and slow down this farm based on just the constant activity would be awesome.
That sounds great.
Yes.
Yeah, I like the idea of another place of land and having a spot for maybe a Farm Bureau retreat.
There you
or
go.
something
Exactly.
like that,
Absolutely.
or we could partner with you. So
Yes,
that's exciting.
Definitely.
It's so great to be here, and thank you for giving us a tour of your farm.
Yes.
I love how inspiring you are to beginning small
Thank you.
farmers, and you show us that it's possible to have a homestead on our farm.
Correct.
And it's going to take a lot of work and time and effort, but you've definitely set that example. So thank you.
I appreciate it. Thank you guys for coming and
Of
just
course.
visiting and just being here and keeping me inspired to keep moving on. Right.
So thank you. Thank you
you.
for joining us on this episode of Stories from the Field podcast, a Delaware Farm Bureau production.